about myself. I come from a very small town called Kadalur in Tamil Nadu. This is like some 20 kilometers from Pondicherry. So I never went to college. I went to school, and then I got passionate by, those days there is no coffee day or anything like that, if you know. So the only place you can hang out and find girls is to go to a typewriting institute. So I went to the typewriting institute to just learn typing, and of course also doing some citing. So, but what really happened was that the founder who had the typewriting institute had the first computer in Kadalur. It's a Sterling Shiva PC. So it's a time-shared machine. Like 6 people will sit around one machine and learn basic programming. So you get like 20 minutes to learn in a 1 hour, or 10 minutes to learn in a 1 hour session. So I learned basic, and then I was absolutely clueless. I don't know what this for loop is, while loop is, and why am I doing a print statement and printing something. I have absolutely no clue like what this programming is all about, right? And then it just basic passed. Then they said, okay, let's learn DBase. It was DBase 3+. I'm talking about, don't get deceived by my look, I'm actually quite old. So it was 1991 or so when I first learned DBase 3+. That's the first time I realized the power of programming. It was fascinating for me because the ability to store data and retrieve data and process the data was mind-blowing. And those days, back in my hometown, there is no airport nearby. I've only seen an airplane in a printed book or something like that. So I thought I'll do an airline reservation system using DBase 3+, and there was no graphical user interface. So there are only ASCII characters, and using the ASCII characters, I drew this airplane diagram, and then you say you book a number. I want to book ticket number, seat number 23. The seat number 23 will blink. And then I did all of this during afternoon section. There was no AC those days, right? The computer will just be normal. So 12 o'clock, 2 to 4 or 5, nobody will be there in the center. That's the time I go and start working, working on the programming part, because it's a time-shared machine, as you think. There's only one computer. So that's how I started my programming journey. And then, of course, I overtook all the masters who took training from me. It was very fascinating. And then I started a company quite early on, right after this. I ran it for 3 years. And then I realized I'm not doing it well. And I traveled all the way from Kadalur to Bangalore and got my biggest break. I started working for Hewlett-Packard in Bangalore. That was an office in Cunningham Road. So I did my first patent when I was working in HP on compression between two computers, encryption and compression algorithm between two computers. That's how just the whole my journey changed dramatically. And then I started specializing on rule-based computing. So that's actually my specialization. So, this was in 97, 98. We had a rule engine technology called Talarian. You may not have known that. Now it is with TIBCO. I don't know where TIBCO is. So a lot of technology landscape has changed a lot. So it was mostly an inference engine. These are all precursors to AI, right? Now we talk about AI. These are all precursors to AI. These are all slot-based inference engine and rule engine technology. I worked on it and then built a couple of patents in that rule engine space. And then I realized it's all connected to the story that we're going to tell anyway. I realized that an irony there. Rule engines is supposed to be easy for non-technical people to be able to program it and then use it. But the irony is it required the most advanced technical people to actually program it and use it. And normal people were never actually be able to use it. And the consulting services required to make a rule engine actually work was phenomenal and mind-boggling, right? And it just didn't really make sense. And then I thought, here is an opportunity to go out and build a product. And that's really how we found it. So we wanted to democratize rule-based computing so that anybody and everybody can do application development and programming without having to go through what is called as a semantic gap. If you know what is semantic gap, Like computer understands certain languages. Human beings understand certain things. And there is always a gap between how human beings perceive things and the computer computer perceives things, right? So a programmer essentially bridges that gap by translating a requirement from a business, translate this into an executable program that the computer understands. That's really what the semantic gap is all about. So essentially, how can we reduce the semantic gap and build a technology that users can directly translate business knowledge into workable technology? That's really how the hypothesis, how I started building out the company. And it was a roller coaster ride. So it took 15 years for us to crack that problem. The first 4 years, we pretty much assumed technology is what everything, and we never focused on business or anything like that. Because I came from a tech background, I rarely had any marketing or sales knowledge. And then we initially built it on client-server architecture, and there was no cloud. And we were one of the first to embark on cloud when cloud came in. This was in 2008, 2009. And there was a conference in the US called Cloud Camp. So we brought, Kissflow as a company is still now called, the company name is still Orenscape, the brand is called Kissflow. So Orenscape as a company, we brought Cloud Camp from Valley to all over India. So we did sessions in Delhi, Bangalore, Chennai, all over the places. So that's how we entered cloud. But then we ended up betting on platform as a service strategy. So instead of going through infra technology, we initially betted on platform. But what happened was the platform concept, PaaS, as we know today, was not yet ready for mainstream adoption because people are still coming to terms with cloud as a concept. They still want to know how does it work, and they are not yet ready to skip one level and go to the next level to directly to go to PaaS, and it wasn't taking off. So we had to take a detour and then build a SaaS solution to solve a specific problem. And that is how Kissflow was founded. So I have to do 2-3 pivots to essentially get to where I am right now. It was a very eventful journey, but it was a very enjoyable journey for me. But from an outside perspective, it might have been seen as a very stressful journey, but it wasn't for me. It was a very, very enjoyable journey, although the company went through a lot of ups and downs. So that's really where we are. So I titled this, that's my short background about how Kissflow came about being. I titled this Kiss Your Digital Transformation. Of course, KISS stands for Keep It Simple, Stupid. If you didn't know, it's a KISS principle. It was first used in the US Army. So currently, Kissflow is actually a low-code, no-code work platform. After all these ups and downs, we have customers in 160 odd countries. Literally, wherever there is somebody living, there is somebody using Kissflow. So that's really what it is. And the way we did it, when we next time came around after all this learning, we heavily betted on marketing. So we are one of the best digital marketing companies that from India we reached the globe. Our India revenues is only 5%. 95% of our revenues actually come from international markets. If you look at some of the brands that use Kissflow, we do have some India brands. Mostly all e-commerce companies in India use Kissflow for various of their back office processes. So that's all about Kissflow. Then we'll go into the topic. When you're talking about digital transformation, I just thought I'll first set out a context. Because this digital transformation, everybody says digital transformation, and it means different things, and different people interpret it different ways. But at a very, very fundamental level, I think there are 3 layers of digital in the digital transformation journey. The first one is your business model transformation, right? A bank decides to go all digital, which means they're going to kill the teller system and go to ATM. I'm just using a very simple notion because this has already happened. But once it decides to, of course, it's owned by the CEO and the board and all of this, that the ownership for the business model transformation is at a very, very high level. Of course, other CXOs will be involved in it. But then once they decide to do it, the business model transformation automatically implicates there has to be a customer experience transformation, because the customer who used to go to a bank, to a teller and write a check and get money is no longer going to do that. He was going to get a plastic card, go walk into a ATM machine and push the card and then punch some number and get money out, and there is no human beings to answer. This completely changes the customer experience, which means the company needs to understand what this really means. This directly percolates into all the C-level people or the BU heads who are running those programs, how the customer is going to adapt to this changed reality. I'm using a very simple example, but this example is relevant to every industry in your own fashion. For example, the reverse digital transformation is if Amazon is an all-digital company, tries to start a retail outlet to reach their customers, or Pepperfry tries to do a retail outlet to start their customers, it's a completely whole new experience that Pepperfry or Amazon has to go through, which is not something their current team would know how to do it. So that experience completely changes the game, right? So then there is a bunch of applications, the core experience applications you got to develop. But then after you do this, it's your operational systems. The digital transformation gets a choking scenario if the operational systems are not able to scale up and support the first two layers. So that's very important. When you talk about operational systems, you're talking about two fundamental building blocks there. The first one is your employee experience transformation has to happen. The second one is your process transformation needs to happen. So if you have this employee experience as well as process transformation taken care of at the operational transformation level, then you are golden, right? So essentially what I'm saying is, when you're talking about operational transformation, you really need some sort of a digital operating system for running your whole operations in the back end, if you're really looking at true digital transformation to happen. Most of the time when you talk about digital transformation, we think about cost or time overruns, or budgets or time overruns as one of the biggest challenges. But I think the biggest challenge is actually risk. The reason I'm saying risk is, this is a survey from BCG, right? If you really look at it, 70% of digital transformation projects fail. Staggering 70% of digital transformation projects fail, right? Only 30% of the projects succeed. So the biggest concern that many of you who are here should have when you're embarking on a digital transformation journey is not cost, is not time, it's actually the risk of your project seeing light at the end of the tunnel. So what you really need is insurance for your digital transformation more than anything else. You need to buy some sort of an insurance, right? And added to this risk, most of this journey is pretty slow. Most of this journey is pretty slow, partly because when you, especially post-COVID, this is an actual number from Gartner, I think, there are 500 million applications to be developed. But there are only 26 million developers globally worldwide. So the ratio of developers to applications that needs to be developed is mind-bogglingly high. Added to that, some of this is influenced by the research that happens in the US. Some of this might be a little different for India. In the US, there is a large talent attrition that's happening, not just in tech industries, but also in the traditional industries, because traditional industries are finding it hard to retain talent, because if I'm a Pepsi, my main business is making the drink and not making software. So the people who are working in technology want to work for a software company. So they're always and constantly looking to change from a traditional company in the IT function to a proper software company, and their path is they want to work for an Infosys or a Cognizant or a TCS, and then eventually they want to work for a Microsoft or a Google. So that's everybody's aspiration, right? And there is a huge transition that's happening. And added to this, this whole thing is getting super complicated. And this is the classical issue that you all know. Always there is a conflict between business and technology. There is a lack of harmony and there is lack of inclusiveness on both sides. It's not a one-side problem. Business thinks IT doesn't know and then tries to do shadow IT. IT thinks I know everything, you tell me what you want, I will probably deliver. You don't ask me, come back after 3 months. So meaning we need to accept probably both the sides, we have our own challenges. And adding all these things together, your whole digital transformation journey is risky and slow, and almost always it runs up into cost overruns as well as time. So how do you approach this problem? I want to set out by describing 3 enterprise personas. First one, your end users. The end users. And then there are process owners. There's also the term called citizen developers. You might have been familiar with this term, citizen developers, and I want to attach citizen developers to the process owners persona. And then there is the third segment called IT developers. How do you, in terms of numbers, the rough way to visualize this would be, if there is a 5,000 employee company, there will be 50 employees in the IT function developing IT developers, and then there may be 500 people who own the business processes. I'm just saying 1:10:100 kind of a ratio. It's a rough number, just mental model. But the needs of these people for digital transformation are very, very different. The end users want their day-to-day work to be transformed. But the process owners want the business processes to be transformed. IT developers want their existing applications, old applications, legacy applications to be modernized, or they want to build a composite application that works with existing applications like SAP or other systems, so that the users get we talked about operation transformation is also about employee experience transformation. So the employee's experience is transformed without having to worry about ditching all the technology investments you already made in your company, right? So these 3 people actually have 3 completely different needs for digital transformation, but they are overlapping in nature, and they also need to come together. But what happens in the market is you have 3 different category of products that solves the needs of these three different people. The first category of product is called CWM. I'm using Forrester or Gartner terminology here, just for the sake of alignment. CWM is called collaborative work management. Right? The next slide I put some logos, you will easily understand it. Then IBPMS is Intelligent Business Process Management System, or BPM software. And then the third one is, which is now called as the low-code app development platform, or app platform. So these are the 3 different platforms or category of products that is required for these 3 different type of people. This is not an exhaustive set, but I'm just addressing the core problem here. But if you really look at it, if you map those 3 categories, what you end up is what I call as the fragmented enterprise. For example, in the work management or the CWM space, your end users need for project management or task management or ITSM or case management, they are going to use this is happening in the US. It's not yet happening as much in India. End users directly go and sign up for an Asana or a Monday.com and start managing this stuff. They don't even come to IT, right? Or they go use a Pipefy or a ServiceNow definitely comes to IT. Asana, Monday, ClickUp, or sometimes even Jira. People just, if they want to manage projects, it's just a SaaS service. They just put the credit card and buy and then start using the software. So this part they tend to do on their own. And then people who want to manage processes, of course this is where Kissflow traditionally used to belong. So they have products like Nintex or Creatio or Pega. Pega of course comes to IT because it's very expensive, right? And then when they have to go to LCAP, IT definitely in the US starts buying products like Mendix or Appian or OutSystems to automate the low-code application development platform. Of course, for integration, again, people try to use, if it's end users, they use Zapier, right? If it is technology teams, they use MuleSoft, Boomi, or Apigee because it's too technical. End users are familiar with Zapier, right? It's pretty easy. It's point and click, drag and drop, no technical, no coding. Anybody can do it. It's pretty straightforward. And when it comes to collaboration, again, you either use Teams or Slack. When it comes to reporting, mostly people still use Excel for reporting analysis because Excel is still powerful, right? You just can't beat Excel. And then Tableau and Power BI. And there are other tools like ClickView and stuff like that. I'm not trying to put a comprehensive list here. But the idea is that this is the full suite that is required to do operational transformation, if you really think about it. You need all these pieces, and all these pieces, A, is going to cost a bomb. B, it's also going to introduce a lot of variance, a lot of risk, a lot of time, cost, money, everything. So the challenges here is, most of the time when you take this tool approach, these decisions are made morely tactical in nature, and they are typically, hey, I have this project to be done, how do I do this? So it's an activity mindset. Then you buy a tool, and you are basically looking at improving your productivity. So right now I'm using Excel and email and all of this. It takes so much time. Hey, if I put on Monday or Asana, okay, I'll save so much time. But then what you really require is a strategic thought process here, which is outcome-oriented, not just activity-oriented, but a platform approach and a transformative in nature. You're not really looking at a 10%, 20% incremental productivity improvement, but a 10x kind of transformational impact. That's really what you really require. So your ideal operating system ideally should be something that encompasses all these pieces together. Right? Users are more, I'm using the word board in a very loose term because users are more convenient with boards, because boards reduce the cognitive load. We're talking about the semantic gap and I talked about in the beginning. It reduces the cognitive load. So if you just visualize a Kanban board, people are able to quickly put together a card and then add attributes to the card and drag and drop the card and get it done. And it doesn't require any programming mindset. It's just like using an application. So easy. And users are able to do most of the project management, task management, ITSM, case management, tickets, issues, requests, all your onboarding workflows. Everything can be done in a board view on a Kanban by end users without IT having to do anything for the end users, which means you're empowering the end users. You're just enabling them on the digital transformation, bringing everything into a managed environment. And then, of course, you need a process management technology, which doesn't look as complex as Pega or something like that, because it's A, it's going to cost a bomb. B, it is not self-service for process owners. It's not citizen developer friendly. If you really think about it, you need to really look at the process owners are people who are citizen developers. The reason why the word citizen developers is, as soon as you use the word developer, there is somebody who's developing and somebody who's using. In the case of end users, there is no separation of developer and user. Developer and the user are the same. Everybody is a developer, everybody is a user. And when that happens, it becomes an end user. But as soon as there is a separation between a developer and a user, then there is a slightly different kind of system that is required. But then process owners are not people who know technology. They don't know programming. But they know business. They know like how the process looks, who needs to approve, who needs to process this, what kind of fields needs to be there, what kind of validation needs to be there. Even if I have to build it, I need the requirements. If I'm a technical guy, if I need to build it, I need the same requirements from the business for me to build it, right? I'm only going to do the translation job, right? Because the systems are not so complex when it comes to process automation. But when it comes to app development, systems are complex. Process owners cannot do it. Simply, end users cannot do it because it requires a notion of like, what is a data model? How the data models are interconnected, where a process starts and where a process ends, how the data needs to flow across these systems, what pages needs to be there, what menus has to be there, and what menus have to be connected to what pages. This level of systems thinking, process owners and end users cannot do. And this is the forte of IT. So we don't have to fight between all these three groups. That people can do that job really well. So if we can unleash all these three categories of people to do what they're really good at in their respective areas, we got the best of all worlds. And that's really what you should shoot for. And you need an underlying layer that connects all these things together by way of integration, both inbound and outbound, by way of collaboration, by way of reporting and analytics. These pieces are required. Today you're probably buying bits and pieces and trying to solve that. I just want to leave you with one, last but one thought. I have one more slide. It's called the power of two. You need to really think about how you can bring the power of business and technology together, right? So in India, I don't know, it's not so popular, but in the US, many of the companies have a separate business technology group. right? And sometimes these business technology groups are embedded within the BUs, or sometimes it's a separate group as well, right? So that's essentially trying to bring the domain knowledge and the technical knowledge together so that we can achieve the goals of the business. So that's something that you might want to keep in mind. So essentially, you want to bring the no-code and the low-code, because we're talking about the low-code, no-code paradigm. Just like the cloud paradigm, you're talking about going from infra to business strategy. The paradigm is now moved to infrastructure, to platforms, to like what does it mean to the business, right? So you really, that's where the low-code, no-code wave is happening. It's a $50 billion market. That's the next biggest wave that's happening within the cloud, is actually the no-code, low-code wave, right? So you want to probably bring all of this into a single platform concept. This last slide, what does it give you? This is a Forrester slide. On y-axis, you have the number of people who get leverage out of the low-code, no-code strategy, right? On the x-axis, you have the number of application use cases it can service. And it is directly proportional to the value of the value that it can generate to the business. Of course, as the value increases, the use case, the complexity also sort of increases, and who can develop? If you can see the coding approach, which is the orange line, it can pretty much do anything. Using a coding approach, there is literally nothing is impossible to do, right? But if you take a low-code approach, which is the blue line, it still requires developers, pure low-code, right? Developers. This is where OutSystems, Mendix, Appian and all fit in, the blue line. The white line is your Java, .NET, Python, not the white line, so the orange line is your Java, .NET, Python. That is your orange line. The blue line is your Mendix, Appian, OutSystems, that's your blue line. And no-code is the traditional products, like QuickBase. If you know QuickBase, Pipefy, all those products which are doing that, those are the no-code products. Sometimes even Zoho Creator will probably fit into a no-code space. But if you combine low-code and no-code, you end up in a white line, which is no-code can only do 50%. These are all broad numbers, right? So Forrester, when they put it, it's not like perfect numbers. The white line gets you as closer to the blue line, if you can think about it, right? As closer to the blue line, but also gives you the maximum exposure to your user base so that everybody comes onto the single platform. That's all I guys have. Thank you very much. I hope it was valuable and useful to you. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have. Otherwise, thank you.
Code,
yep.
What you might end up in a lot of duplication of the solutions and creating inefficiency. What's the approach around that?
Correct. It is quite possible. You need some governance in place. That is why you need a unified platform approach as well. You need governance in place where when somebody creates an application, it comes for some sort of an approval before it gets provisioned into the development environments, right? So you put in a governance in place. That's another role in an integrated environment technology teams can play. But the nature in the work management space itself, there will be a lot of applications, a lot of these boards that people will create, which we cannot control. It's like, think about if you're using Google environment or Office 365, we have no control of controlling the number of spreadsheets somebody create, right? There you really don't worry about duplication because it's in the end user space. So in the board kind of an environment, you really don't want to worry about duplication because end users know how to manage that, and there will be duplication, and nature of the job is like that, and you just have to live with that. But when you cross the board, the end user space, and come into the process owner space as well as IT space, you cannot afford to do this duplication. That's where the governance will be very important. And you might want to choose platforms that provide you that governance built into the technology. Yeah. Yes, sir.
So when you're talking about the no code and low code, I'm Jayanta here from StarTech.
Hi.
So there are multiple cloud platforms you have. You have AWS, Azure, and
Sure.
Google Cloud. So which cloud platform you see to be more preferred for SaaS solutions, and why?
I think the difference in platforms have completely sort of gone away. As soon as the containerization has happened, if you've been tracking like that, the containerization is already mainstream, right? We use, for example, Kissflow completely runs on a Kubernetes container. Kubernetes container. We run on Google Cloud. In Asia Pacific, we are the sixth. Google has the top 16, 15 companies that they track, and we are in that 16 companies list in a priority customer. Kissflow is treated as, like, we generate so much workloads. But the entire Kubernetes cluster, we run on Google Cloud. We can decide to simply move to Amazon or to Azure without any problem, except for the fact that if you're using any cloud native services.
Yeah.
If you're using cloud native services, then
dependency.
Then it becomes tied to a particular environment.
Yeah.
So we tend to see if we can host those services also part of the Kubernetes cluster, so that we can move, because we are a ISV, we are a service. As an end user company, you don't need to really worry too much about this, because we need to maybe a little bit worry about it, because our main business is building technology and software, right?
So from a pricing perspective, how do you differentiate?
I understand Google is a little bit cheaper among the other providers, but of course when you go to enterprise, Azure will equally come and give you a competitive offering, and and AWS also now they have put in some enterprise sales managers in the India market to go and target. So I think
what role does edge computing play in SaaS?
Sorry?
Edge computing.
Edge computing. Yeah, edge computing.
Yeah.
You mean like caching and those kind of stuff, or what? Edge computing. We use Cloudflare. We don't use Google's edge services. We use Cloudflare in addition to the Google GCP. We use Google Cloud Platform and Cloudflare combination. No problem.
Hi.
Yes, sir.
Hi.
Yeah.
So this is Archit. I'm the Group CISO of Team Lead Services.
Sure.
So my question is going to be more philosophical in nature, and as the topic suggests, that shift of cloud from infra solution to
Sure.
business strategy. So I'm asking purely from a strategic standpoint.
Sure.
In your slide, you mentioned that digital transformation essentially has three pieces. One, business model transformation, customer experience transformation, and then finally operations transformation. So my question, and rather my curiosity, is that necessarily does it have to be in the same sequence, or it can be in the reverse order? The reason why I'm asking this question is because there is also an alternative view on that it begins with digitization first, when you are at the operations layer. Once you have digitized things, then using that digitized foundation, you start creating digital products, which is actually digitalization, with which you empower customer experience, a novel customer experience. And finally, when you have digitalization kicking in, then you can think about newer ways of doing business, newer business models, and that's where digital transformation kicks in. So I mean, my curiosity is around, do you suggest that it essentially has to be in the same sequence, or it can be in the reverse order as well?
I think it mostly top-down, in my view. It's a top-down view. The simple reason is we are talking about transformation. And see, like, I consider digitization leading to digitalization, that journey, more of a automation journey. A lot of these things are in traditional manual or non-automated environment, and you are basically going through an automation journey, right? Like, for example, if you have paper, today, let's say your finance team accepts only paper bills as a proof of your expenditure. And then they're putting racks and racks of paper files and then storage somewhere, right? It used to happen even in Kissflow. I was like, what the hell, yeah? So, and then we completely killed that. So we said scanned it and put it into the system. So that process is not a transformation process. It's mostly a automation process. So I won't consider it's a big transformation journey. And almost always, like what they say, if you heard about the term OKRs, objectives and key results, right? If the purpose is clear, then what results have to be achieved, which is outcomes, will become clear. If the outcomes becomes clear, what activities have to be done to achieve that outcomes will also be clear. So actually that's one of the reasons, maybe this I skipped a little bit faster. This slide is actually that slide. See, most of the time, activities need not result in outcome. For example, I put a social media post and my social media marketing guy comes and tells me, I completed all my work today. What he has done is actually completed the activity of posting. But what is required was a post needs to create, let's say, 50 engagement with the potential audience that we had in mind. And it did not have any engagements. So the outcome is totally not there. Only activity is completed. Right? So if you really look at a transformation journey, it starts with what is your mission and boils down to your objectives and what is the results, which is basically outcomes. And then comes activities. And some of these activities, if it changes the whole strategy, may not even need any digitalization or digitization completely. So sometimes you might be automating something that might have to be even completely changed. And what is that change? It will be driven by strategy. But it's not that this is not required. There is also value in what you are saying. But that value is more of automation in nature, getting your systems in order in kind of nature, rather than it's a big strategy impact and just changes the company completely. And in this context, we're talking about how does digital transformation change the whole company completely, right? So that's really what I think. Like for example, if I'm a Kevin Care, like FMCG company, how can there is, like for example, I buy a toothpaste which is called Bird Song. Have you heard about this brand? No, right? So this is a completely organic toothpaste. Each toothpaste costs some 600 rupees or something like that. But this company is marketing directly to consumers. It's a D2C company, and it is kind of creating its own niche in the traditional toothpaste market where Colgate, Pepsodent and Close-Up and all used to operate. Now how does a Kevin Care or a Unilever or a Procter & Gamble take this digital route to get to the customers? And that's a whole new experience because they are used to manufacturing products, giving to stockists, distributors and going to retail outlets and then reaching to end customers, putting TV ads. That's their model. And that model is changing because there is no TV ads, there is no distributor, there is no stockist. There is product team, there is a website, and there is digital marketing and the customer. And then product gets shipped to the customer. So it just changes the game. And that is massive transformation. Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Pramod. I'm from Visa Inc. So you mentioned that the low-code, no-code platform or the solution is a 50 billion industry, right? So more often than not, when you are selling this low-code, no-code platform or a solution to a company, right? The USP for any company based on the business needs is the scope for customization, right? How does low-code, no-code platform or solution address this? And how does Kissflow address this solution, the constraint of customization?
Fundamentally, the platform itself is custom only. The whole, whenever you are buying a low-code, no-code platform, mostly they give you templates. Even we give you most of the ready-made templates. And then you can open the templates and make modifications because you come up with a builder. All the platforms, including Kissflow and other competing players, they have a builder. So you open the template in a builder, make customizations and push a publish or a deploy or go live button, it just go live. So it is fundamentally built on the premise that 100% customization is possible, right? So that is really how it works. Yeah, mostly.
Suresh?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So it looks like there was a starting trouble and then there is a flurry of questions. There is one more gentleman there, and then we'll finish it. Yeah, sorry. Two more questions. Yeah, sorry. Yes, sir. Please.
Suresh, my name is Kamesh from Grep Digital. One of the aspects which you already touched upon is the customization part. But the other thing is Gartner seems to indicate that almost 70% of all apps will be using low-code kind of platforms by 2024 or so. Do you see a risk of what we call as shadow IT creation as a result of this?
It is possible, unless, see, like when the problem, you embrace it, it's not possible. If you don't embrace it, somebody will quietly do it. So you know why shadow IT, how it came? I don't know whether you guys, I didn't know it when I was reading that. Apparently, it was long ago, right? When IT was there, it was a mainframe systems was IT actually. We are talking about shadow IT as software problem, but shadow IT is a hardware problem, which is the mainframe computer used to be somewhere in the central place. And then somebody in the business wants a computer for himself, and PCs came. So the business guys went and bought their own personal computers because they are not getting time on the mainframe computers that is there centralized. So they hid that machine under their desk when nobody is seeing. And then they take the machine out and work it, and when they are done, they put the machine back into under the desk. That's how the shadow IT actually came. And then it extended to the software and everything that we are seeing today. Now it's in cloud because there's only one click away in a browser to buy any software and start using it. So the thing is, this change is inevitable. Unless we embrace it proactively, it's easy for us to take control of it because it's connected to that governance somebody asked about it. So you better buy a platform, give it to the users. One of the first customers for Kissflow was a company called McDermott. It's an oil and gas company. It was a Fortune 500 company at the time. They went through some challenges. They are not in the Fortune list right now. They bought 10,000 licenses. The CIO, Akash Kurana is his name, is a very progressive guy. It's a Texas-based company. He said, this is going to come. I'm not going to wait and watch my business users do this in a side project. I'm going to buy this. I will give the 10,000 licenses to them. Let them do it. But now I know I have the technology platform. I control it. My team knows what is getting created, what is getting provisioned, who is using what. All this data I have. Now no longer it is some sort of a shadow thing that happens, and he took that advantage. So I would recommend, I think bunch of us here, or most of us here, take that approach rather than sort of ignore it, because it's anyway going to happen. So which we cannot avoid. That's what I would say. But buy a platform which gives you the governance and you're good. Yes, sir. Hi.
I'll keep it short. Interoperability between the low-code, no-code platforms.
Sorry, I missed the first word.
The interoperability between the
okay.
low-code, no-code platforms. Now, just like cloud infrastructure, containerization did what the traditional cloud infrastructure didn't do. How do you see this? Like, if you see like different business units or business consumers using different platforms for whatever reasons, and then it becomes a nightmare in terms of managing the huge mesh of these applications.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is a problem. Sorry, what's your name, sir?
Girish.
Girish, yeah. I'm assuming you're talking about interoperability between, if I create something in Kissflow, will it work on OutSystem? If I create something in OutSystem, will it work on
Exactly.
Kissflow, right?
Yeah.
I doubt it's going to happen. I doubt that's going to happen. It's very unlikely that's going to happen, I think so. Because the fundamental nature of the problem, how these technologies are evolved is very different. There is no easy answer for this. There is no easy answer. But there are two more points I wanted to say. But there is another big problem is that we also need interoperability between, like for example, the biggest problem I would really worry about is not interoperability between brands. But can a process owner create a process, and can that process be used in an application which an IT developer is using? Because the process knowledge is with the business guy. But the systems knowledge is with the IT guy. How can you let a process owner create the process and the IT guy actually use that process and build the system? That interoperability is what will really be valuable for you to achieve that, kill the slowness, de-risk all these things. That is the most important interoperability I would really worry about, and not about the rest of the stuff. And you should pretty much consider this low-code systems like a SaaS kind of a system. Like for example, if you buy a SaaS service, you don't have access to the software. You use the software, and if you don't like the software, you cancel the software. What you get back is data. And then you go to, like for example, you don't like Zendesk. You're using Zendesk, you don't like Zendesk. What do? You don't know how it works. So you say cancel the service, you push a button, get the dump, you go to Freshdesk and import all the data, it starts up and working. So I think the interoperability is slowly moving away from code level interoperability to data level, somewhat like that interoperability. So there are some portion of interoperability will come. For example, in Kissflow, we have a process definition which we can export and give it in some sort of a BPMN notation so that we can import it into another BPM. So that there is some logic there, right? So which we can do. So these are the sort of bits and pieces of interoperability that will happen. So you can take that logic. Some of the code that you are writing, most of the coding that is done in low-code, no-code platforms. See, if you really look at low-code, no-code platform, what they really do, except for Kissflow, most of the thing, Kissflow alone does something slightly differently, I'll tell you that. They have a visual designer to design your forms. They have some data model designer which creates your data model. And then there is some sort of a page builder which brings all these things together, and then some sort of a menu system that ties all these pages together and builds your application in a drag and drop environment. But then when you click on a button, you have to write some actions. And most of the time, most of them, these low-code platforms don't have rules, but we have rules. So that's one difference which we difficultly have. But then when you write the code, it is written mostly in JavaScript. Most of the vendors pretty much use some variant or the other for JavaScript because JavaScript has become like a de facto standard. So that code is anyway portable. You can just copy that code and use it pretty much wherever you want to do. But there will be some work to be done. So I think there is no straightforward answer. Is the nutshell.
Yeah, I think the fundamentally, are we going to create different tribes of silos, like who is kind of watching for different things? I mean, should that be a kind of a governance matter in the sense like the whole enterprise should use one low-code, no-code platform? I think that's probably the.
Yeah. So if you choose the right platform, just the both low-code and no-code, it will be good. But one more last thing I wanted to tell. In Kissflow alone, we have an app store where you can download and install the apps, which is not just like just like your mobile store. We have that. So with that, let me finish up. I think we are run out of time. Thank you very much, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Bye.